There are moments in history that reshape nations, and then there are moments that reshape the entire world. Usually, they arrive with explosions, with revolutions in the streets, with armies crossing borders, flags burning, crowds chanting, rulers falling. But this moment is the moment that changed everything about money, power, and wealth forever. Didn't come with noise. It came quietly. On a warm Sunday night. No riots, no chaos. No warning. Just a calm voice, a suit, a camera. And a decision so enormous, so world-shifting, that most people still don't fully understand what happened. A single announcement that killed the world's old money and birthed a new financial era built on debt, manipulation, and illusion. This is the story of the night money died. The night the link between currency and real value was severed. The night governments gained unlimited power to print, borrow, and reshape the global economy at will. The decisions made in that broadcast didn't just affect America. They rewired the global financial system. They changed how nations trade, how banks operate, how wealth is created and destroyed. And they set every one of us on a path into a world where money isn't backed by anything real. Only trust. Only belief. Only illusion. This is the story of that illusion. The system we were all born into. The system we still live inside today, without ever being asked and without ever being told the truth. The world didn't realize it that night, but in that quiet moment, a new financial era began. One built not on gold, discipline, or limits, but on endless money, endless debt, and endless consequences. And today, we're finally living through the results. Before 1971, money wasn't just paper. It wasn't pixels on a screen. And it definitely wasn't something governments could create with a signature. Money represented something real, something physical, something ancient and universally trusted: gold. After World War II, the world was in ruins, economies shattered, currencies worthless, trust almost gone. So in 1944, in a quiet hotel in New Hampshire, world leaders gathered for a historic meeting known as Bretton Woods. It was not just a conference. It was the blueprint for a new global order. There, the nations agreed on a revolutionary idea. All major currencies would be linked to the US dollar. And the US dollar would be linked directly to gold. It created a chain of trust. Countries trusted the dollar trusted gold, and the world trusted America to keep its promise. The promise was simple but powerful. For every $35, the United States guaranteed you could redeem it for 1 ounce of gold. It wasn't just policy. It was a contract, a discipline, a built-in limiter that kept governments honest and currencies stable. Under this system, money had weight. Money had meaning. Money had a physical boundary that no politician or banker could simply push aside. And it worked. Bretton Woods rebuilt shattered economies. It restored global faith in money. It fueled decades of growth, innovation, and rising living standards. And it made the US dollar the undisputed financial anchor of the world. But hidden beneath the stability was a growing pressure. Because what happens when a nation becomes a superpower? When the world depends on it for leadership, military presence, foreign aid, and economic support. But its gold supply stays the same. What happens when America's global responsibilities expand faster than the gold backing its currency? The answer is simple. Cracks begin to form. These cracks were quiet at first, barely visible. But they were the beginning of a fracture that would eventually shatter the entire system. The United States became the engine of the free world. But engines require fuel. A lot of it. Rebuilding Europe, defending allies, funding global bases, launching the space race, expanding social programs at home. The expenses exploded, but gold reserves did not. By the late 1960s, Fort Knox held around 280 million ounces of gold, while dollars circulating globally represented more than double that value. Foreign nations did the math. The promise was broken. Then, France made a move that shook Washington. France's President Charles de Gaulle no longer trusted the dollar. He ordered U.S. dollars held by France to be exchanged for pure gold, as the Bretton Woods Agreement allowed. French warships sailed into New York and returned home with tons of U.S. gold. Other nations followed: Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom. Gold, the foundation of the global system, was disappearing. Fast, inside the White House, Nixon's advisors were terrified. America was days away from losing the gold that gave its currency value. The choice was simple: keep the promise and collapse, or break the promise and hope the world wouldn't notice. Nixon chose the second option. It was August 15, 1971. Across the United States, millions of Americans settled in for a routine evening of television. Families gathered in living rooms. Children played at their feet. No one could have predicted that tonight history itself would bend. President Richard Nixon appeared on national television. The Oval Office behind him bathed in warm, muted light. His posture was calm, composed. His voice steady, measured, authoritative. His expression unwavering. Then came the sentence that would change the financial world forever. I am temporarily suspending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Temporarily, a single word, chosen with care. A word meant to soothe, to calm, to mask the enormity of what was happening. A word that would last forever. With that one sentence, the ancient, unbroken link between money and real value, a connection that had survived empires, revolutions, and centuries of trade, was severed. Centuries of monetary tradition, of trust, discipline, and limits vanished in a single evening broadcast. The world's money, once solid and tangible, once tied to work, scarcity, and gold, became faith. Faith in governments. Faith in central banks. Faith that a piece of paper, backed by nothing more than a promise, could still hold value. In that quiet, unassuming moment, a new era began. An era where money was no longer a claim on reality. It was a story everyone was asked to believe. And with that story, the world changed forever. With no gold anchor, the dollar became a fiat currency, money created by government decree. Its value no longer came from metal, but from trust in politicians and central banks. And with no limits, governments discovered their new superpower. They could print money endlessly. At first, people didn't notice. But then came the 1970s. Inflation exploded. Oil prices quadrupled. Home prices surged. The dollar lost half its purchasing power in a decade. Ordinary people suffered. But Wall Street, it adapted. It evolved. It thrived. Debt became the new fuel of prosperity. And the world's financial game changed permanently. Without gold, the U.S. needed a new anchor. So it created one: oil. The United States made a historic deal with Saudi Arabia. Oil worldwide would be sold only in dollars. Other OPEC nations followed. The petrodollar was born, a system that forced every nation to hold dollars just to keep their economies running. The IMF and World Bank spread the dollar even further through loans and aid programs. The U.S. didn't have to export goods anymore. It exported its currency. A new type of empire emerged, not built on military force, but on financial dependency. But hidden beneath this success was a growing darkness. When money is unlimited, everything becomes addicted to debt. Governments borrow endlessly. Corporations borrow to inflate stock prices. Families borrow to survive what wages can no longer afford. In 1971, U.S. national debt was $400 billion. Today, it's over $34 trillion. Not because something went wrong, but because the system requires endless expansion to stay alive. Every financial crisis, every bubble, every bailout, it's a ripple from that night in 1971. We live in a world where money isn't value, it's belief. And belief is fragile. The night money died didn't end in chaos. It ended in applause. A calm speech, a smiling public. a world forever changed. Today, we live inside the consequences of that applause. A financial system built on confidence, not value. If this opened your eyes, subscribe, because the future is already written. You just need to understand the moment when everything changed.